So I'm Jelmer van Nooy. I work on Samba upstream and a little bit on the Debian packaging of Samba. And because of the fact that the Debian packaging ends up in Ubuntu, also indirectly on the Ubuntu packaging. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Samba at the moment and how that will affect the packaging in Carmen. So right now we've got Samba Free, which is the old Samba stable series that was developed in around 2000 and released for the first time in 2001 or 2002. So it's really stable, and it's mostly geared towards being a file server rather than towards being a directory server that most of the modern Windows servers are as well. So the architecture was really not designed for being a Kerbal server, a LDAP server, DNS server, all the sort of things that Active Directory domain controllers are. And Samba Free has some support for being part of a Windows NT domain and an Active Directory domain, but it's quite basic and it can control a Active Directory domain. In Samba 4, which we started in 2003, we tried to add a really good architecture to support Active Directory better and to be able to support being an Active Directory domain controller, as well as supporting some other neat features such as WMI, which is Microsoft's implementation of web and development standards, and proper infrastructure for other projects in the free software world, such as the OpenChange project, which is a free software implementation of the Microsoft Exchange email and calendaring protocols. And we've also focused a little bit more on proper testing. We've got very good test coverage, and Microsoft's actually using our protocol test suites since they don't have a lot of them themselves. So one of the problems with the current situation is that there's two development teams, one working on Samba 3 on the production code, and one working on the somewhat more experimental Samba 4. And for a large part, we're just working on the same problems, but in different code bases, duplicating each other's work. And that's really not a good thing. The configuration format is also slightly diverging. So configuration files in Samba 3 will not work on Samba 4 and the other way around. Some of the defaults are even different. And that's developed over the last sort of 5-6 years. And last year we, for the first time, really started to work on merging the code bases back again, something which we should have done probably a lot earlier. This was called Frankie, which is short for Frankenstein, which is basically merging those two ugly beasts. This came out of a meeting in Göttingen, sort of the Samba capital of the world, where we hold our conference every year, where we were asked to work on documentation describing which bits of Samba 3 and which bits of Samba 4 were better for particular features. And we actually ended up merging them because that was a lot easier than writing documentation about it. And so we've now got an implementation with a hybrid server which uses Samba 3 for the file servers. Samba 3 is much more mature in that regard, and which uses Samba 4, Samba 4's directory services, Samba 4's Kerberos, and other implementations. And we've made them talk to each other. And so you can now get a hybrid server with the best of both worlds. And we're also slowly working towards eliminating those differences in the configuration. One of the other things we've done is we've actually put the two release branches into one if branch. And we're slowly eliminating code that's duplicate and using common code. So right now, there's not that much common code yet. The auto-generated section that you see there is all generated from IDL code, which describes some of the Microsoft protocols, which has also been published by Microsoft. So the green bit is also common. So we're slowly heading towards having about half of the code in common, and we hope to get up to about 3/4 or something like that. And Samba 4 is including handle curvers at the moment, because of some of the extensions that Microsoft did to curve rows. We can't use a stock curve rows. So we've got our own patched up version of handle curve rows in there that we hope to get rid of at some point when handle starts including those changes upstream. And so in Debian and Ubuntu at the moment, we've got both Samba 3 and Samba 4 packets, but they conflict with each other because they provide some of the same binaries, and they share the same configuration file. So the packets have to conflict. Samba 4 actually includes a copy of Handler Corros. It doesn't use the system Handler Corros. And Samba 4, since it's necessary for OpenChange, it only exists in experimental, and so OpenChange can only exist in experimental as well. And evolution and evolution support for newer exchange servers, being able to contact newer exchange servers, also exists only in experimental versions. And so one of the things that we're hoping on doing in the next few months is making sure that Samba 3 and Samba 4 can be installed together. And because of that, also being able to run this hybrid server, which gives you the best of both worlds. And another thing is making sure that Samba 4 actually gets to use this the system Handler Corros, so we get a much smaller footprint on the system. Should be one slide, I think. So another big thing is clustering. It's very hard to do clustering of CIFS because of the locking semantics that Windows requires. Locking is actually mandatory as opposed to POSIX locking, which is advisory. And as of Samba 3.3, there's a proper clustering implementation in Samba, which actually, when you add more servers to the cluster, you actually get better performance as opposed to worse performance, which some of the other solutions were available previously. And this is actually very easy to set up. If you have just one server in the cluster, it's basically clustering process in the configuration. And this will be enabled. This is enabled in Karmic at the moment, so that will be a Karmic function. Any questions?
So Samba 4 aimed to be, actually I have 3 questions. So Samba 4 aimed to be complete Active Directory domain controller implementation. So I understand that you have your home directory server and your home version of Inzal at the moment. What about the other infrastructure services such as DNS and DHCP? Is Samba 4 providing their own sets of these servers, or are you expected to run that alongside Bind and ISC DHCP?
So the question was, is Samba 4 going to be a complete replacement for Active Directory? And are we going to provide our own implementation of the various network protocols that Microsoft basically, of the standard network protocols that Microsoft took and implemented and added extensions to? We're going to, for some protocols, we're going to provide our own implementation. So for example, for curve rows, we started out with our own implementation because we weren't quite sure what sort of extensions we had to add. And we didn't want to end up sending patches to upstream that we then later had to retract because they weren't complete enough. And so we now have a working version of this patch handle turbos, for example, and we would like to work towards using stock, supporting a stock AMLO turbos as well, and a stock MIT turbos, but that's just further along the way. And for LDAP, that's a little bit trickier. I'm not quite sure what we're going to end up doing there. DNS, I'm not sure either. We can use the client as well, but one of the problems is that we have to do a bunch of updates, and that makes it. You can do that sort of thing manually, but it's a bit annoying. So we need to work on the integration with client, for example. Same thing goes for the HCP. Support for NTP is upstream already. I'm not sure what other protocols there are. We actually patch pretty much every server to support all this problem.
Should I just go on with my two other questions, or let someone else ask this?
Yeah, let's take another question. Steve?
As the Samba 4 code base evolves, has the Samba team given any consideration to introducing a new logo that doesn't make me wish I were colorblind? Can you please get a logo that looks a little better?
Well, one of the problems is we don't have any GUI people. So we don't have any people who actually use anything other than Emacs or VI. Yeah.
Well, okay, I have two more questions, so if nobody else has any, just go on. Open change, how does it relate to libmappy? Is this the same implementation, a competing implementation, something else entirely?
So the question was, is open change different from libmappy? And libmappy is actually a part of open change.
Oh, okay.
Open change is 2 bits. It's libmappy, which is the client side, and there's also a server side. And the server side is still evolving. There's a proof of concept that do more than simple email support yet. Any other questions? Right.
You're overquoted. Yeah.
Okay. The CIFS clustering thing that's going to learn land and Karnik, it's very cool. But I can't help but notice that you basically re-implemented a complete high availability framework. Have you given the thought of reusing something from another project, such as Red Hat Cluster Suite, or the one that's being sponsored by Nobel, that's the name usually at the moment, or well, basically like use an existing ELN instead of writing your own and such?
Pacemaker.
Pacemaker. That's it.
I'm sorry, which framework? I didn't get a question.
Okay.
What log manager do you use?
Can you reuse the log manager that other projects
Well, those aren't log managers aimed at supporting CIFS. They're POSIX log managers. For clustering.
Okay.
You ask for DFS?
Yeah, we support Microsoft DFS.
Did you hear the question?
No. Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. The question was, do we support DFS? Yes, we support DFS. I think we supported it since early 3.0. It's always been given to the documentation software. Okay, thank you very much.